Hello everyone, welcome back and thank you for joining me for this third episode which will cover rules, scoring and game strategy. In the last episode, I briefly touched on XP, on power and on card level to explain how tournament scores are calculated. In this episode, we'll go under the skin of the scoring methodology and I'll try to explain you all the subtleties that will help you to build your own game strategy. And let's start by the beginning, that is understanding XP. So each time a card is used in a tournament, it accumulates XP. XP is directly linked to card level, and card level increases step by step. Card level drives card power according to a relatively complex formula, and the maximum level is level 20. Uniques build up XP more quickly than super rares, which build up XP more quickly than rares. As of the end of February 2020, the XP formula included a base XP of 75, regardless of whether the player actually played on that day, plus an amount that depends on the number of minutes played, and finally a team XP that is based on the total team score, so not only for this player, but for the whole squad. So in summary, a card's XP gain per week is capped at 400 and relies more on the team score than on the actual player's performance in real life. The next step is to link card level to XP. Card level corresponds to a certain level of XP and increases step by step. So you need 100 points to go from level 0 to level 1, then 200 points to go from level 1 to level 2, 300 points to go from level 2 to level 3, and so on and so forth. And at the end, you need 2000 points to go from level 19 to level 20. A consequence of this is that you need at least 53 weeks to go from level 0 to level 20. Those who are keen on math will identify an arithmetic sequence, and for any level, XP is the sum of an arithmetic sequence. This means that you can actually backsolve level from XP without referring to the scale. The last step is to link card level to power. And this relies on a relatively complex formula that varies with scarcity. For the three scarcities, the base is the same. There is a base level of 6 plus potential season bonus and fidelity bonus. In addition to this, there is an incremental power that depends on scarcity and which is multiplied by the level of the card. This incremental power is equal to 0.3 for rare cards, 0.6 for super rares, and 1.5 for uniques. Finally, a scarcity multiplier is applied to the sum of the base power plus the bonuses and the incremental power. This scarcity multiplier is equal to 1 for rare cards, to 2 for super rare cards, and to 3 for uniques. I've never played seriously in Division 1 under the current format, but for all other divisions, I used to find that low power cards actually have a lot of value because they can play longer in a division before capping out. This is particularly true for cards with a high level and low power, for example where they don't have season bonus or fidelity bonus, because the power of these cards increases more slowly. As mentioned before, it is impossible to reach the maximum power within one season. Therefore, the max power cannot include the seasonal bonus. The max level is 20, which means that the theoretical max power without bonuses is 12 for rare cards, 36 for super rares, and 108 for uniques. And if you add a fidelity bonus, you get to 12.6 for rare cards, 37.2 for super rare cards, and 109.8 for uniques. An interesting thing about incremental power is that even if you ignored the scarcity multiplier of 1, 2, and 3 respectively for rare, super rares, and uniques, the uniques would gain power much faster due to the incremental multiplier of 1.5, which compares to 0.6 for the super rares and 0.3 for the rares. So going back to the team scores, now that I've covered power, I need to explain the points. To put scoring in context, let's have a look at the rewards. The rewards are adjusted regularly to reflect the evolution of the user base. For the tournament of March 7th, 2020, the rewards were as follows. For most divisions, the first place involved a prize in Ether, and even if you're not on the podium, you can win something. For Rookie League and Wiki Challenge, it depends on how you rank as a percentage of the users, and for the other divisions except Division 1, it's a function of the points you score. So that was for the context. Now let's have a look at the strategies to win those rewards. The beauty of Sorare is that it suits a very wide audience with very different profiles. You can choose to be a trader and flip cards very quickly. You can choose to focus on gameplay, but only as a casual manager. You can be a moderate geek or a hardcore data scientist. Let's start with the casual managers who do not want to spend time reading the rules and or scouting. If this is your profile, all you need to know is that player score is based on real-life performance, and that clean sheets, passes completed, goals scored, and minutes played are very important. If you are focusing on teams with a dominant style, you're likely to spend a lot of money. I've put together a few stats on the different teams covered by the platforms, where you can see the top teams in terms of average goal scores, the average goals conceded, number of passes per 90 minutes, and the average number of clean sheets. This should give you a good idea of which team to focus on, but do not ignore rotation in large squads. To take the example of Club Brugge, you see that whilst few defenders and midfielders play all the time, the high rotation means that the attackers only play half of the minutes. Therefore, if you are going for Club Brugge players, you should probably focus on defenders and midfielders. If you want to take things one step further in terms of time investment, you quickly arrive in moderate geek territory. Without getting into the details of the rules, tracking point scores in the past tournaments helps assessing the quality of a player. There is no long-term database covering Sorare scores, and only the last 5 games are available on the player's page. As I said before, watch the dates, because if a player is not in group, the game does not show, so the last 5 scores may be very misleading. It's relatively easy to identify the best players according to this methodology, but the best players are relatively expensive, and identifying rising stars is actually very time consuming. Few tips if you want to take this approach: have a look on Discord at the dedicated channel about SO5 point scoring, because you'll see the top 50 scores in each tournament, and you can always screen through the gaming arena to find the scores of the top teams in previous tournaments. I explained at the beginning that there are thresholds for Division 4, 3 and 2 from which we start getting a reward. And if you are a threshold player, this is how you should look at things. In All-Star, you start getting rewards when your players get on average 6 points, and this increases to 7 in Div 3 and 7.7 in Div 2, and the high threshold is always at 8.3. In Under 23, you start getting rewards when your players get on average 5 points, which increases to 5.7 and then 6.2 for Division 3 and 2, and the high threshold is around 6.8, 6.9. Lower thresholds are really accessible in my view, and all you need to know if you are a threshold player is that a lot of midfielders and defenders consistently score above those thresholds, but very few forwards consistently do. So there is a lower risk of missing the thresholds if you focus on defenders and midfielders as extra players. Strong cards, for example unique in Division 2, helps you achieve the thresholds more quickly and rely less on other cards. And if you're not a threshold player but a podium player, then you should take some risks, because you probably need to get above 10 points on average in All-Star and 8 points on average in Under 23 to secure a podium or even to dream of the win. Looking at those charts, you realize that the second and the third are generally very close. It could be the same team with power as the sole differentiator. There are fewer consistently performing players in Under 23 divisions, which means that the scores are generally lower, and the reward thresholds reflect this. Once again, I want to remind you that everything I mention here is based on the current scoring methodology and things may change in the future. But if it was the case, I'd probably seize the opportunity to post a new tutorial. Once you've passed the moderate geek stage, you qualify as a SO5 data scientist. You need to go under the skin of the scoring system and to analyze every single component. Then you work out probabilities of independent events to happen, but also of combination of events to happen. This requires intense data crunching and external databases. Few points I'd like to mention about the current scoring system as of February 2020. First of all, defenders do not get points for shots on targets. Secondly, defenders, midfielders and forwards get negative points for penalties. There is no difference between an attacking midfielder and a defensive midfielder, so if you have the choice, you should probably pick an attacking midfielder. And finally, given the current scoring grid, it's almost impossible for a forward to score more than 5 points with no goals and assists. Given midfielders get points for a clean sheet, a single goal match, or even the number of passes completed, a midfielder scoring many goals will almost always outscore a forward with as many goals, and this could be an important consideration when it comes to select your extra player in your 5-player squad. The clean sheet is only awarded if the player plays the full 90 minutes based on the current scoring methodology. I would have loved to prepare a statistic feast for this tutorial. Unfortunately, I understand that the current scoring methodology is under review and it probably doesn't make sense for me to invest a lot of time in this. Therefore, a dedicated tutorial on statistics and probabilities will be organized later. In the meantime, I can give you an example of why probabilities can be important at Sorare Fantasy. It's easier to win with a team including a super rare card than with 5 rare cards in Division 3 because to get to the same number of points, you need fewer players to perform at the same time. And the probabilities that each player performs are multiplied with each other. Given probabilities are a number below 1, the more you multiply, the lower the probability for the combined event. Interestingly, there are probabilities of some combined events that do not decrease with the number of players. It's the case, for example, of clean sheet points for the players that play on the same team. And this is again a consideration for you when you put together your squad. You may consider including a goalkeeper and a defender or 2 defenders from the same team. We often get questions about players' repositioning. A card can only be used in the position written on it, even if the player has changed position in real life. In the example of Amuzu, the Amuzu 4 out of 100 can only be used as a forward and will be scored accordingly, whilst Amuzu 5 out of 100 can only be used as a midfielder and will be scored accordingly. And given what I've said before, it is certain that the card 5 out of 100 will outscore the card 4 out of 100 given the current scoring method. We have reached the end of the 3rd episode on rules and scoring. Thank you for joining and see you next time for an episode on marketplace and trading. In the meantime, have a look at the comment below this video if you want to sign up and have the opportunity to win a free rare card.